Hey there, friends. Today is a great day. You're in such a great place. Don't go away, I promise. I have a treat for you today. It's a privilege and a pleasure for me to introduce you to today's guest here on the Creative Shop Talk podcast. I teach my shop owner clients to ask for what they want, to put their CEO hat on, and to get a little bit brave. I took my own advice recently and I reached out to the incredible Jo Packham and invited her to come on and chat with me. She's been an incredible inspiration to me for so many years through her magazines called Where Women Create. I don't know if you've heard of them, but I hope so, because you're missing out if you haven't. But she's been an incredible inspiration to me for so long. Her official bio, I'm going to read it as I was given it, is that she's a leading innovator in the handmade publishing market for more than 43 years. Jo is currently the creator and editor-in-chief of the two best-selling magazines Where Women Create, which is an inspiring workspaces of extraordinary women, and What Women Create, inspiration for your imagination. Well, let me tell you, there's a lot more to that bio. I feel like I could go on forever. But what it doesn't say is that she's an incredible, generous soul, and she's wicked smart. I mean, just incredibly wicked smart. And it's so obvious to anyone who has the privilege or the pleasure to work with her that she's a huge champion for small businesses. That's why I invited her on here. I just love her information and advice. What she didn't know, though, before we started, and I want to share with you just before we get going, maybe so you'll understand why I get a little bit mushy, gushy. I don't even know if that's the right answer, but I do get a little sappy on the post or in the podcast. Is that her magazines had a huge influence on me as I was starting my businesses. There really wasn't much out there. This is way back before Instagram and everything was online and coaches and all of the things. Her magazines really opened up a whole new world to me. I feel like getting mushy again here, but it really helped me figure out what was possible. My imagination went wild and crazy and thinking and dreaming and doing. And I'm sure you all know what I mean by that. But it gave me such confidence and it gave me a lot of inspiration and I say confidence in that, I can do it. I can do this, right? So it gave me a lot of information as well. And again, the inspiration to just give it a go. So I owe a lot and I feel really privileged to have a chat with her today. In our conversation today, though, I learned that she used to have retail stores. I didn't even know that. So she's going to share a little bit about that. And to be honest, she's going to share some like the hard stuff, right? We don't share just the good stuff here. She's going to share, the hard things and some of the hard truths that happened along the path. It hasn't been an easy 43 years of business. Can you all imagine and relate to that? But she's going to share a little bit of all that. So it's just an incredible conversation. Okay, so settle in, grab your earbuds and listen in, and let's get inspired by this extraordinary entrepreneur. Running a retail business doesn't have to be so hard. Welcome to the Creative Shop Talk podcast, the go-to podcast for creative shop owners, studio owners, and independent retailers. I'm your host, Wendy Batten, retail business coach and mentor. Each week, I'll share simple, proven business strategies, inspiring stories from fellow retailers, and advice from industry experts. Together, we're going to work to find the success you want from your retail business with more profits in your till and a little more joy in your life. So friends, I am here today I'm just so excited. I'm having a hard time not gushing. And I have a piece of paper in front of me that says, do not gush, because I'm here today with Jo Packham. And I'm so excited, Jo, to have you here. Thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh my gosh, it is such an honor. And gushing is hilarious because patience is something that you need to have with me because I just keep rambling and talking and get so excited. So it is such an honor. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I really do have a piece of paper that says, do not, my husband told me don't gush. I really do have that here. So thank you for your time. My listeners have been excited. They actually know that I gush not gush. I speak a lot too, so we should be a great pair here today. So I am so flattered. Something that you don't know, and I'm gonna get you to introduce yourself, but I want to share a little story that I didn't share with you before we jumped on. But you were my first business mentor. You don't know that, but and I'm getting all red here. But when I first started my business, when I first dabbled into it, and I share this regularly, that I started my business because my daughter told me I needed a hobby other than her. That was many moons ago. And there was no other outlet, or there was nobody doing anything in my community. I lived in a small town, and your magazines, when I found them, just opened a whole world of imagination for me. This is where I'm going to gush. I'm going to get really sappy here for a minute, but it really inspired me that I could do that. I could do that. I mean, there were blogs and there was a few things, but your magazines are still treasures to me to this day. And when we did downsize and move, and I have shared this on the podcast before, the only thing I brought with me as far as paper, paper products and stuff, because we're a very tiny house, were your magazines. And I have ones that go way back, and so you're my first business mentor, whether you know it or not. So thank you. I wanted to say that. Thank you. Your magazines have been amazing. So thank you for being here. I wanted to get that out before I forgot to share that, but and to let you know. But I would love to know, can you share with my listeners a little bit about your journey, your business journey? We hear about all the other people that you share in your magazines, and what is your business journey? How did you get here?
Oh my gosh, my business journey has been a rough road. I have to say, I am not one of those that can say in 6 years built $1 billion business. That's just not what I did. And I started with a retail store. I was driving down the street from San Francisco to Sacramento with my husband, who just graduated from law school. And I hated California, and I was late, and we had this brand new baby. And I said, out of nowhere, I said, I'm going to move home and open a retail store. And he said, you're going to do what? And I said, I hate California. I'm going to go home, take Sarah, open a retail store. You can come or you can stay. And so he thought about it for a while because he loved California and he wanted his law practice there. But we moved home, and I opened a retail store, and we sold art supplies to the university. I partnered with my very best friend. And one thing, I have a million stories, but one thing led to another. The store led to publishing cross-stitch books. The cross-stitch books led to publishing hardbound books. The hardbound books led to publishing magazines. And this is my 44th year in business for myself. And it's been the greatest of times and the worst of times. And so that's what I always like to say to retailers, is that we at one point worked with my daughter. She hated publishing. So I owned a couple of buildings in the historic district of Ogden. And so she opened 3 retail stores, and we experimented with those for a while. And then she moved on, and I went back to concentrating on publishing. So it's been a crazy road.
Wow. So how long ago would it have been that you opened that very first retail store? When was that? Was that the 44 years ago? Is that when you started? Was that your very first endeavor?
My very first endeavor was the retail store. And then the second series of stores that Sarah opened that were in the buildings were opened about 20 years ago.
Wow, that is a journey. This is great. So when was the first magazine? So and at one point you had 4 magazines, correct?
Correct.
Maybe more. I don't know.
No, just
I
4.
knew about 4, and now there's 2.
Correct.
There's obviously a story there, because I'm like, look at me. I'm gonna show, I know my listeners, every magazine, they're all dog-eared.
Look at you.
That's just like a handful. I'm like upset. I'm like ridiculous. But the Where Women Create Business,
Right.
is no longer. So you've combined everything now into the two that we have.
Well, what happened was when I worked with Stampington, who was my first publisher, we did cook, we did wear first, where women create, then we did where women cook, then we did business, where women create business. Then I left Stampington and went to Disticor in Canada, and we added what women create. And then COVID took down Disticor and me at the same time. And then I found, or was found by, a new publisher, Matador, in Boston. And they decided to start with the two most popular, which were Where and What. So that's what we've started with. I've only been with them just a little over a year. So it's a very new relationship. So we're just getting our feet wet, so to speak.
Didn't realize that, because it's interesting. It's like a nice clean line, right? Business is easy, right? I was like, so many, and COVID has not, COVID has been hard on everybody. And being in the publishing industry, I feel, I don't know, what do I know? I know nothing about the publishing industry other than I feel like people still love magazines. I love magazines. Are you still, I mean, and the things you're doing right now, and I'll get you to explain a little bit about that, but I'm so excited to see your magazines every month, or when I see them, when I can find them. They're hard to find where I live, just so you know. Let's talk to Matador about that.
Have to start shipping them to you for sure.
We need to talk to Matador about that. But anyway, so yeah, they're harder to find. But like, I'm excited about publish. Like, do you find it's on the rise again? Where do you feel about that?
Oh, I do feel that it is on the rise.
Yeah.
But I think it's taken a little bit of a turn in that it's on the rise for really beautiful magazines.
Yes.
When you talk about Uppercase, Selvage, some of the really beautiful magazines that are out there, because people do not want to be inundated with ads. They want their magazines to be an experience. They want to lose themselves in the beauty of the photography and the authenticity of the story and all those kinds of things. So we are actually at this moment in time doing better than we have ever done. And our sales, we have always been number 2 at Barnes and Noble. And now we are the highest sell-through magazine at Whole Foods, which is amazing for us because we're a $17 magazine. But I think, and it's interesting, all of my publishers, Stampington and Disticor, were newsstand sales publishers. And that's what we wanted. We wanted rankings on newsstands. We wanted to be purchased on newsstands. Very, very few subscriptions. And then when COVID hit, the reality came rushing in that we were too dependent on newsstands, and that's what took Disticor down and us, because we had everything invested up there. And then when I thought about doing it one more time, I said, I'm going to do this one more time. I decided that I would focus on a subscription-based, web-based publisher who still printed and still sold to newsstands, but whose main focus was on the web and through subscriptions. And I was afraid it would kill our newsstand sales, but all of the web presence and all of everything they're doing is just making newsstand sales even more aggressive, which surprised me continually.
I love how you're evolving, and that's something that my retailers have had to do, and retailers listening. I mean, we're independent. I think sometimes we think, everybody else has it easy. Look at these fancy magazines, look at these big businesses, and we're all evolving, we're all changing. We all have to pay attention to our audience. We all have to, like you are doing, and what you are doing, what you have a membership now, I love it. I think it's amazing. I think that, it's just done beautifully, and it does fit the need now, right? You have the online versus and subscription and the newsstand. I still love a newsstand. I am like that girl that loves, I still love walking through a newsstand and thumbing through the magazines and looking for yours. And it's been a hunt here. So it's really kind of funny. But I do see that, evolving and evolution for independent businesses, no matter what size, is important. And I applaud you for doing that. How did you, I've heard you say a couple of times, and I heard you say in another interview recently that, you had to get back up. You had to keep pushing through. And I think a lot of people listening right now are probably feeling that. It's this non-corporate life is what I always kind of joke about. Say, it's not an easy gig, and it's not for everybody. But we choose to do it. We could all just quit and go work for the man, or go work for a woman, or go work somewhere else, go work for corporate, whatever. We want to keep our passion, and we want to keep it. What drives you, and what makes you get back up and go at it again and push through this hard? And it's hard.
It's really, really hard. But I think it's a personality type. I think you're born with that. I have never been able to work for someone else. I got kicked out of school in the 6th grade because I couldn't get along with the teacher. I had 16 jobs before I was 21 because I always thought I knew more than the boss, and I have hit the ground and lost absolutely everything 3 times. And I would like to say, in my defense, it wasn't for bad business. It was a situation like COVID. There were the sale of the company that I was partnering with. There were all kinds of reasons. And I've always had a legal team. I've always had an accounting team. I mean, I don't go into this stupidly or blindly, but there are just, when you're an independent entrepreneur, there are situations you cannot foresee or control, no matter what you do. And after I hit the bottom the first time, I was like, okay, I'm just going to stay down and let everybody take care of me. And nobody came to my rescue, and nobody wanted to take care of me. And I, after about a month or 2, I thought, what the hell? I'm either going to have to get up and do something else, or because I don't know how women find these guys that just take care of them. They pay all their bills. They take them on fabulous trips. I never had that, right? That was just never something that I was attracted to, I guess. I like the grit of hard work and, being really, really involved. And so I tried laying down and not getting back up, and nobody came to my rescue. So I just had to do it by myself.
Well, and I do think that leaders need to lead, and you're a leader. You're a definite leader. And that's, like you just said, it's in your nature. There's a drive inside you to create and build and do, right? Like, and ideas that have to come out. I assume I'm just because I see that, like, you're a visionary, you're a leader, I don't know that leaders can just lie down and say, I'm tired, I'm done, I assume that's what's driving you and making you get back up 3 times. And that's, it's a lot. And I think it's important for people to listen. I don't know. I think it's really important to hear what you said and unpack that a little bit. It's because we have a bump in a business, or a fail in a business, or something bad happens. It doesn't make us bad people, or dumb or stupid. I've had people say, I'm not cut out for this because this crushing pandemic, has crushed me. And it's like, oh yeah, that makes you a bad person because you're not. It doesn't. And I think it's a really important lesson for people listening, that self-employed life is hard, and things happen sometimes that are out of our control.
Well, and what happens too, or what's happened to me, is I come from a very successful, my husband and my children are extremely successful, and I have very successful friends. And when you hit the ground, they look at you and say, you made a really bad decision. And I'm like, I did not make a bad decision. But what happens is they lose their faith in you. And that is the most devastating of all. is when something happens and you have to pick yourself back up. And this last time with this decor and COVID, when I hit the ground, I have to say the people that I were the closest to didn't say a word, didn't acknowledge it, didn't say, is there anything we can do to help? There was not one word spoken about anything. And it was the strangers in my life and the women that we've featured in the magazine that came to the rescue with a GoFundMe campaign that I didn't even know about. They did it behind my back. And it's what saved the magazines. It's why we're here today. It's a really interesting story in
Wow,
humanness.
that's the community you built, because you build and that's powerful. That's very powerful. We talk a lot about it on the podcast here, and we talk a lot about it in my coaching groups about building this community around you, because sometimes the people closest to us don't get what we're doing,
Yeah.
or ask, like you just said. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's very powerful. And I'm, I don't want to reach out and punch the people that are around you. I'm saying. So but I do hear, I guarantee you people listening right now are nodding their heads saying, that's right. People around me don't hear, or they're like, oh, Wendy and her little craft business. That's what somebody said to me once. Like, it must be nice to play arts and crafts all day, and I'm like, dude, I'm working like 100 hours a week, like at the time, it was just, it's just, they don't, and these are close people. These are close people. So, so thank you for sharing that, because I think, the ivory tower that, the successful people look like they live. Everybody has hard times. Everybody has people around them that don't support, but building this community, and what you've done and how you foster community is amazing to me. I feel part of your community for the last, like, you're like my photo albums and my magazines are the only thing that came with me. I'm not even kidding, but that's because of the community that you built even in those magazines. And so thank you for that, and thank you for sharing that. I think that's a really big thing for people to listen to. And again, business is so hard, and I know we don't want to always be like, I think you mentioned to me before we jumped on that, I don't want to be Debbie Downer about how hard business is, but it's the reality. We're always evolving, we're always learning. There's always going to be, I say a lot, new level, new devil. Like, just because we made it to this success, well, now, oh, look, now I have a whole bunch of people I have to manage, and oh, look, we made it to this, or you do, and then, oh, back down here. Right. So it doesn't matter whether you're a small independent working by yourself in your studio, or booths. I have a lot of booth space listeners, and DIYers, or a multi retail business. There's going to be things. Right.
Yeah,
So
I don't care how small or how big you are, there are stumbling blocks along the way. And that's why in retail, I advocate for a community in all things we do all the way around, because it's impossible for each of us to be good at everything. Yeah. That is just an unrealistic dream, right? And we need to surround ourselves. You need to surround yourself with people who are not like you, who can do things that you cannot do. And you have to be very guarded. You have to trust them, work with them, but you have to be very guarded not to completely depend on them, because all of us have our own private lives and things get in our way. So if I'm depending on you, 100% all the time, something's going to happen in your life, either between you and I, between you and your children. I mean, things just happen and people go different directions. So you have to be prepared for that. But to try and do it by yourself, from my perspective, is absolutely impossible. I just don't believe that.
Yeah. I don't know anybody who does it by themselves. And I think we could have a whole topic conversation about partnerships and trusting
Oh
people.
yeah,
And
yeah. Partnerships are not part of my community.
yeah, yeah. I've seen some successful ones. I've been part of not so successful ones. I've seen lots of, yeah. So and trust is a big thing. Again, thank you for bringing that up. Trust is a big thing as well. Having too much trust. That's why I'm a big believer in like systems and procedures and like, we're all replaceable. I'm replaceable. We're all replaceable. So, it's important to have. I also want to pull out what you said about, you have to have people that look at things differently. I am really unorganized. Like I come across, I teach, about being a planner and being organized. I'm really good at, the certain things of my business. I love my business. I'm really good at whatever. But if it wasn't for like my team, you and I wouldn't be talking here right now. Somebody set this up so that you showed up and I showed up and there's a Zoom link working. Like, I don't mean so I think we all need to have the people that build their strengths. I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours figuring out Zoom links and all the things, right? I want to serve and do, for my people. And I see you do that as well too. So I think it does take a village, as they say. It does take a strong community and fostering community, but the right community too, right? So it's
Well,
important.
that's why you're such a good coach, is because of the creative side of you, right? I mean, I think a lot of coaches are too analytical and too organized and, come from that perspective, and they're dealing with entrepreneurs who are all about creativity and who cannot relate to the analytical side of it all. And I think that's why you're so good with your people, because you recognize that.
Well,
No,
I say
it's
we are a
great.
unique breed, and I think we are, but I do think we do need to know the number side, and we do need to know that stuff. But honestly, I try to teach that in a like creative way now, because but we can't be ignorant. So, and I also don't believe to what you said, I can't just hire an accountant and say, you take care of all my numbers. I got to have my hand in there now. That was where I think a lot of us go sideways. And again, new level, new devil. As we get deeper, as we grow, we need to have understanding of those conversations. And that, I say regularly again as well that we have to have our business foundations, but we can know enough to be dangerous. Like know enough know enough to know like what's working, what's not working, and how to evolve, what needs to happen, but then sort of stay in our zone of genius as well, as far as but we do need to know enough to be dangerous so that we can keep an eye on things so that they don't go amok and other people don't run our businesses.
Well, and it doesn't disappear while you're off doing something else.
Right.
Somebody walks in one day and says, you're done, because there isn't any more money in the bank, right? So you do have to be aware. But I do think that from what I know of creative people, they're also equally as creative with their money. When you're down and out and there isn't anything left, you think, well, I'll just do this, right? And then we'll start building back up again. And I think people who are analytically business people don't have that degree of creativity to do that. They can't switch as fast.
I think you have to have a little bit of both, and I think it's easier to train us to understand our numbers than it is to train somebody to be passionate and creative, right? Like
I don't believe you can train somebody to be creative.
No, that's what I mean. I can
Yeah.
learn my numbers, but I can't teach somebody to be creative.
Yeah.
Like, I mean,
Yeah,
I can teach you to
exactly.
explain. So we used to often joke that like accountants can't run businesses, right? Or our type of businesses anyway. So like they really couldn't, because if it was all just dollars and cents, then there's that passion and heart. So that my listeners, most of the listeners listening are independent, family owned, we're like independent owned businesses. And that does take creativity, and it does, because what constraint causes creativity, is that what where it comes from? I mean, when you got to figure out how to outfit your whole, we've got $800 to outfit our whole shop, and we're not a multi-million-dollar retail business. We get really clever. My very first studio, it's really funny. My very first studio, through lots of really cool community things happened. My friend had a space and we just like, oh, let's just open a shop anyway. Not how I recommend it, but it worked. And we did some really cool things. We had like these farm lights hanging down over my workshop tables in my studio, and everybody come in, they're like, oh, those are so cool. Where did you get them? And I'm like, I literally bought them at the farm store. Like, they were like farmer lights, not, there was no fancy restoration hardware lights in my studio. And people would come in and they'd be like, wow, those are fancy. I'm like, we spray painted them black, and they, they're literally chicken lights, and we were picking, and, we got really creative. But again, that's what we had to do. And you're right. I don't think like an accountant would come in, or somebody who's
never.
just analytical come in and build those types of businesses. We do get very creative when we have to be, right? So that's how it works, right? So we have to be brave too. And I don't think bravery and courage, I think, is a really big part of what we do. Like, as far as being self-employed and being creative minded and business oriented. And that's not always easy. How do you push through? Like, how do you get your bravery? How do you become courageous? Is it just do it and figure it out as you go along, or do you have any secrets for that?
I also think you're born with that. I think there are some people who just, if you lose confidence in yourself, you always have confidence in someone else. And I think that's why I do my magazines the way I do. I think there are always stories about other people, because that's how I build a community. I believe in strength together. Mm-hmm. And when one of us is down and weak, there are 10 others in this community that will talk you off the ledge, right? And so, but I think you're born with that. I think it's the difference. Personally, I think it's the difference between an entrepreneur and a businessman. And the way, in my down home kind of explanation that I have, is an entrepreneur let's use restaurants as an example. An entrepreneur opens the restaurant of his dreams. Let's just say it's a hamburger place. He's always wanted to do gourmet hamburgers. After he's done it for a while, he decides he wants to do a second restaurant, because he can see the efficiency in having two. But he's not going to open another hamburger restaurant. He's going to open a taco restaurant, or he's going to open a bar, or he's going to do something. So pretty soon he's opening all these things that are kind of related but totally different. Where a businessman is a chain guy. He sees a really good money-making opportunity in McDonald's or Starbucks or whatever it is, and he opens 250 more that are exactly the same, and so that's the difference for me. And I think the entrepreneur or the creative business person surrounds themselves with other creative people. And I believe in this. I believe in conversations and getting together and traveling to friends and saying, you guys, I'm down and I need your help, and I want everybody to throw their ideas out there, and then I'm going to take them and do what I want to do with them. Right. And I think that's why my magazines are exactly the way they are, so that we all have a place to go, and people that we know. I mean, we don't have to go hunt down strangers. We know their stories. We know how to get a hold of them. We know that they've been through what we've been through. And so it's, we're building all the time, but we're very stable as a group.
I just love that. That's a great analogy of the two, right? It's not just about the business side of it. It's about experiences, and that person's having fun too, having way more fun and using their brain too, right? And having fun with it too. So just a really great, so true. And gathering, oh man, I miss gathering with other people so much. I'm just like, this one-dimensional, I just really am. I'm ready. So when's your first conference? You had a studio, and is that
I did.
That's
I
part
had
of
a beautiful studio. I've had a couple actually, and I lost the second one, which I really loved, the Urban Studio. COVID took us down. I just didn't have a choice. Sarah says, Mom, you didn't lose your studio and that because you sold it for an enormous profit. But for me, it was the place I went to. It held my heart and all my memories. And it was in the center of Ogden, which I really, over the years, have helped to build. Or my little town. It sounds like your little town, only we're in the mountains, right? And I've worked really hard for 40 years to build it, to be on the team that built it. And the creative ideas were mine. I did Christmas Village. I did 70 horses for Ogden Pioneer Days. I did all the creative stuff, and I was so wise in my organization of the Downtown Alliance that when Sarah and I put it together and made the rules, I said that you had to have a presence in the community, on the street, a business to belong, because bankers would come in and everybody would come in and nobody understood what was really needed on the street. And when I lost my building, I lost my place in the community on the street. And that hurt more than anything.
Wow. Wasn't the physical structure, it was the whole thing. Yeah. That you built, right?
I did. I built I helped build. I mean, nobody builds anything by themselves. And I took the creative end while Sarah took the business end, and other people, everybody had a role to play. And it was all of us, but we were together. There were a group of 6 of us in the beginning, and together we built our downtown, and we're very proud of it. And now I'm not part of it anymore, and I hate that more than anything. I hate that. So I think probably in my future there's another building down there somewhere that's calling my name. Right?
I was just going to say, never say never. I have learned that there's no such thing as never. And I've also learned there's no such thing as forever. So like when we sold our forever dream home and ran away to this little house that we live in now, that was my forever home. So your next building might be down there just waiting for you to discover it, or your next adventure
for the
down
right
there.
time and the right place. Right?
Yeah, I do remember your studio though. I mean, that was on my strive list. I call it a strive list of things that someday I'm going to go to an event.
It was beautiful. It really was.
Yeah, it did look beautiful. So but
we loved it.
The next one will be beautiful too, right? So it's exciting though, especially as a creative brain or as a passion, filled. I don't think we all I don't know, the days of this is how we're weird, right? This is how we're weirdly wired, that, we didn't go to lawyer school, university, law school. Thinking, I was like, that doesn't sound right. Sorry.
Right.
But we didn't go to law school.
Good. I know exactly what you're talking about.
So we didn't go to law school, and then there's certain avenues you take as a lawyer, you take or whatever. And there's just sort of this predictable thing that's might happen to you. Mm-hmm. And for me, especially, and I see this for you and almost everybody that I work with, it's this kind of accidental entrepreneurial journey, right? We're just moving along. One day we're doing this, and then, we're building empires and buildings and building a business and a brand. But I honestly don't know where I'll be in 5 years, because I would never have predicted that I would be sitting here with you, from my fishing village. I coach retailers all over the world now. It's incredible. And having a chat with you, you just can't predict. I don't think that we can dream up where the road's going to lead. And I think that's kind of exciting and fun. As long as we're doing something that's exciting and fun, I guess we don't know where the road's going to go. So we don't know where the road's going to go. So that can be fun.
Say, when I met you on the other podcast, and nobody said where you were from. And when I was reading your bio today and it said NS, I thought to myself, well, that's Nova Scotia, but she can't be in Nova Scotia because I just talked to her. I just assumed you were here, right? Somewhere. So I had to go Google it and look it up to make sure I knew what I was reading. It was, it is the one good thing that COVID did, is it brought us together from far away more often. We can be together more often. And I do think the the events will come back, and I think we'll start traveling again and meeting in groups. It's essential for us. We don't do well alone.
I do not do well alone. So I am just, itching. I just booked a small gathering here in Nova Scotia for creatives to meet up. And because I was just like, all right, it's time, people, and we're going to start small. And, I've had 2 retreats cancel in the US. I love to travel. We're going to get together. We're going to have something. I'm going to meet you and we'll have a conversation.
I'm coming.
So
just make sure I know.
Yes, and such an open invitation. I was telling Jo prior to jumping on, I said that if you don't mind not fancy and you don't need fancy, we love to host people here in our little fishing village in Nova Scotia. So anytime, you just give me 24 hours to clean the house. So I can put something together in 24 hours. So I do think, though, it's important, just back to the gathering and the difference in how we are creatives and how I call it the weirdness. I mean, I don't know, I shouldn't call it the weirdness, but we're just unique and different. And I think sometimes running businesses, and trying to be that businessman that you said earlier, I think there's freedom in not having to be like that. There's a really big freedom in saying, I hope people feel this sigh of oh, it's okay that I'm not running my business like my corporate friend is up the street. We don't always get the advice from people, maybe our corporate lawyers and our corporate accountants and our corporate, they don't get us either sometimes, which is weird. There's a whole missing, I feel like there's a whole missing segment of small business accounting.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it took my accountant a long time to understand that we're very multi-passionate. We do different things in my business. And he's like, well, what do you mean? You're just a store. I'm like, no, we also do retreats and we do this and I do coaching and it's all, under one umbrella. And he's like, whoa, I don't know. They just don't get our weirdness.
No.
So I do feel like it's comforting to hear and to have conversations with others, understanding there's business foundations. Yes, we have to know our numbers, as we, mentioned, and there's lots of other things, but it's okay not to be in that corporate box, I guess. That's why we do what we do. We have this beautiful creative business that we're growing, and we need to surround ourselves with lots of people who get it and understand and can help and support. And as I mentioned at the beginning, you were my first mentor because I didn't even know the world existed. So the stories that you share in the magazine or you shared that I would read, I'd be like, there's always I would see the big picture from lots of different angles. So the ideas start percolating, and that's what community is about, right? Understanding they were all my friends, even though you were my friend, even though you didn't know it, but then you start expanding and broadening. So again, your community that you have, right now going, it's beautiful. Your newsletters are beautiful and your conversations and it's really comforting. And I think it's important to find those people that understand and surround yourself, like your circle, like you said, your circle that supports you, that gets you and supports you, gets your weirdness, right? Gets your weirdness. But so what's next for you? I want to honor your time. I know we could gab forever, but what's next? What's exciting right now? What's happening and that's exciting for you and your business?
Well, it's all the things in conjunction with the website, I think. We're working on the magazines and they're doing better than ever. And they're my first love. Mm-hmm. But Matador was responsible for putting that website together. And we're working, it's not the way we want it to be exactly yet, but we're working towards that. And I think you give us another 6 months or a year. And I think the website will be as stunning and as all-inclusive as the magazines are. And it's just, I came at it from knowing nothing. I mean, I had a website, but it wasn't interactive. It was just, you could see what magazines were for sale, and that was all there was to it. So I'm focusing on the website and just growing the magazines in this community. And I would like to add one more magazine back in. I loved Cook. I really loved Cook. But, I don't know, maybe we'll do my past publishers have always done what are called SIPs, special interest publications.
Yeah.
So we would try a quilting magazine or a cooking magazine or a whatever magazine. And I'm hoping that we can do that with Matador one of these days, but we're still trying to get our feet on the ground and make it all work. It's expensive. Publishing is getting more and more expensive, and the supply chain issues are real. I mean,
Yeah.
we're late on newsstands by 2 weeks with this summer issue because they couldn't get paper.
That's incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's happening with everything. But hopefully, I would hope that people are getting more, I see people getting more understanding.
Yeah.
I know it doesn't help sales and we need to get it on the newsstand, but it's not as, I don't know. I feel like as annoyed as people get lately with short fuses, I also feel like
Right.
there's been expansion as well of understanding of those things as well. So
I agree.
will we see a cookbook or just
I
the
don't-
I'm like, now I want
what?
to see your favorite cookbook. I want to see your
I did books for 17 years
Right.
and I published over 1,000 titles. And I loved it. And it was a natural progression, but I love the magazines more. The magazines are continuous. They build more community. They're, you write a story and you're done rather than trying to come up with 100 cross-stitch designs and fill a book. By the
Right.
time an author gets finished with her book and sends it to the publisher, she wants to change what was in the beginning because she has so many new ideas. They seem old, right?
Yes.
And it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
But with magazines, it's like you do it in a week and you get it done and we print it. And if you want to do another one, we'll do another one.
Yeah, that's exciting.
On something else.
That's exciting. So again, back to that creative mind. So how do you stay? One quick question before how do you stay, like, you're so creative. How do you stay on track without the squirrel creative brain? Like, ooh, shiny object syndrome is what we say. Like, how do you not follow all these beautiful ideas that you have? Because I mean, you must see everything. And I was like, oh, I can do that. How do you stay focused?
I stay focused now because I work with Matador, who is the partner who is in charge of the printing and the publishing and everything. And to do anything extra, I either have to pay for it myself or I have to get their approval. In the beginning, when we started with cross stitch and stuff, I was in charge of everything. So we did our own printing, our own shipping, our own distribution. We had our own warehouses. So when a shiny object came running by, we did hand painted cookies. We did porcelain dolls. We created clothing. I mean, there were so many side ventures. I can say that I've probably produced something of everything at one time in my career. So it's a metaphor that's keeping me.
Because we need people, right? We need people. I know. I regularly say my assistant is the one who keeps me like, she's like, no, you said we were doing this quarter. We're doing this, so yeah. So, well, we can have side passion projects, like maybe what you're going to do downtown and, or.
My studio was a side passion project. And, I do have side passion projects with, different people. And I think our traveling, like attending events and teaching at them and, doing whatever we do are kind of our side passion projects, because you can do a small, like I can go to some place and I can teach business or publishing, or I know how to do lots of crafts from all the books I published, right? So I can teach one of those or take a teacher with me and be part of the group and still feel like I'm doing something new. So it's not always just proofing manuscripts, which is what I do a lot of.
Which, again, we could keep talking about this, and that's actually something that happens with retailers, with my shop owners. Like, like you build this beautiful shop, you get it running, you nurture the customers, you build a community, although it's been a little bit not like that the last couple of years. Last couple of years has been more survival mode, but sometimes it's like, okay, how do we not get shiny? How do we foster and grow this particular brand and business that we're growing versus getting all these side passions. So maybe we just need to think of them as side passions and stay on that main track. Maybe we all need a Matador in our life. And I think your team at Matador, he actually said to me, like, no, we're the boss of you. No, I'm just kidding, but they do.
It's pretty true.
But again, I think we all do need to have, at least a goal and a straight arrow or an arrow where we're headed. So to stay on track. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that as well too. And on that note, let's talk about your magazine. So your team and you have graciously decided or offered to give a subscription away to a lucky listener. So I'm so excited. I want to thank you for that.
Of course.
We're going to run a little contest, and the details will all be in the show notes, and we'll share that a little bit in the closing notes so I don't on how we're going to do that. But thank you so much. I wanted to thank you for that, because if you're living under a rock and you have not read the magazine, any of the magazines, you got to go out right now and get one, or try for the subscription to win the subscription. Thank you so much, Jo, for being here. I'm just so honored and so flattered to have you here. Before we wrap up, I always ask my guests if they have a favorite saying or motto or something they just like to leave with my listeners that would encourage them, something that might inspire you or encourage them. Is there anything that might pop up in your mind?
Well, one that I actually stenciled on the walls of work and that I use all the time is that wherever you are in your journey, take notes, keep notes, take lots of pictures, and travel safe.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's really nice. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna tell you a funny story as we close up. You have a sign in your office. It's on your website, but I'd seen it before. I don't know if you've had it for a long time or
Long time.
Yeah, so I have those words written down, and they are cheer, cry, vomit, bitch, and hope. I really feel like that. I thought that's what you were going to share. I was like, is that her favorite saying? So yours was way more elegant, but I love that. But I love that that's so entrepreneurial grit too, though. So
I do love that. And I have had that. I'll bet I've had that for 30 years. And
wow.
It's always hung on my wall, and I always put it in the magazines, and I put it everywhere. And all my publishers nicely call me up and say, Jo, do you think that's appropriate? And I say 110%, because it's what every artist I know has been through. It's your battle cry. It's all the stages that we go through.
Yeah, I've had that on my wall. Remember, fangirl here, but I've had that on my wall for a long time too. And I was like, and then I saw that you actually I wasn't going to mention it, but I thought, oh, she has it on her website. Like, you have it full frontal on your website. So I'm like, I'm going to bring it up again too. I love that. And I think it is a great battle cry. So on that note, thank you so much, Jo, for your time and your graciousness in bringing to my community. I'm just so grateful. And I know my listeners will be too. So thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
Okay, friends, isn't Jo just awesome? I really hope that you enjoyed that as much as I did. I tried not to gush, but you know how I am, right? But there were moments. So as you heard us mention, Jo and her business team are giving away a full year of What Women Create to one of our lucky listeners. Isn't that awesome? I think that's so cool. The contest will run from now until May 31st. It's 2022, just in case you're listening in replay. All of the details will be on our show notes at wendybatten.com/106. So you'll find out all the information there so you can join us. So thanks, my friends, for listening today. I'm on a cloud. I don't know why. I shouldn't share that with you, right? We're friends. I was just really excited to chat with her. So I hope, again, that you did find some inspiration from this incredible woman. So follow me on Instagram and chat. Let me know. I'd love to know what you think of the podcast and our interview and what else you'd like to hear. Hit me up and let's chat. I love chatting with you in my DMs at Wendy Batten Biz. So we'll see you soon.